And joining us now here on the Randy Karraker Show on STL Sports Central is the president of baseball operations for your St. Louis Cardinals, Chaim Bloom, joining us from the office. Chaim, it's good to see your face. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's good to be here.
Have you moved into your new official office yet, or is this still the one that you were in before?
No, I have moved offices. There's definitely, I have not been able to prioritize putting some different things up on the walls and just trying to, move some things around for the feng shui. That has not risen to the top of the priority list yet. We'll get to it at some point this winter, I hope, but there's a few things ahead of that on the list right now.
No doubt about it. And as you get started, and it might be different for you, and you can give us the comparison between going into Boston and having the 2 years in the Cardinal organization. A lot of times when a GM, Pobo, gets the new job, you're drinking from a fire hose. Has it been that way since you took over the helm here?
To some degree. I mean, that's just the nature of it. This is a busy time of year in the front office, regardless, like even if you're not new to the role. But it's different because I've had a couple years to get to know the organization, get to know the people, and that makes a big difference. You're not trying to come in here and just figure out who everybody is and where everything is. And because of that, I think there's some things that I was able to get going really right now that normally you might have to be in the organization for a year or two before you figure it out. So hopefully that will help us down the road.
And I know you guys have had a ton of meetings leading up to the general managers meetings next week in Vegas. What would you like to accomplish next week?
Well, next week, hopefully, will be when the offseason, the player portion of the offseason really kind of kicks off in earnest. I think increasingly in our industry, teams are so preoccupied with a lot of staffing and infrastructure stuff in October, if they're not fortunate enough to still be playing, that really usually there's not a ton of action that happens prior to getting the GM meetings. And that's kind of a reset for everybody to start talking to other clubs. We get to all see each other, get to reconnect, get to connect on priorities. We've already started having those conversations with the other 29 clubs. But next week, I expect is when we'll start to flesh them out and really separate what's real from what's not. So really looking forward to doing that. And then also just continuing to work on the flow of how we all work together, myself and our AGMs. Because, obviously we all know each other at this stage, but in terms of how we're going to work together with me in this seat, the more that we get that good flow going, the more that we can be responsive in the way we need to be to opportunities that are out there.
Yeah, the name of the meetings are the general managers meetings. You just mentioned your AGMs. Are you going to have a general manager of the Cardinals at some point?
I expect we will at some point. I don't know if that's going to happen this offseason or not. I do think, you fast forward a long way, you look ahead multiple years, I do think we will. But, at the moment, there were some other things that I really wanted to focus on and tackle in terms of our staffing with this organization. So we've focused on those, but I do expect at some point we'll fill that role.
And I want to ask about the two newest guys. Joe Douglas is your director of pro acquisition. What's that job description like? What is Joe's job going to be?
Yeah, really, it's about putting us and me ultimately in position to make great decisions on free agents and on other teams' players. There's so much that goes into that. He will oversee our pro scouts, but there's more than scouting that flows into these decisions. It's all the information we have at hand, and not just the information, but how does that information come together so that we have the right valuations on players so we can target the right guys and make the right decisions in real time. And there's a lot that goes into that now. When you think about the competition in our industry to do that well, which of course 30 teams are trying to do that well, there's a lot of work, there's a lot of process that goes into it. More often than not, you have a good process, you're going to make more good decisions. So he's really in charge of that process and teeing that up for our senior leadership team and ultimately me to be able to make those good decisions.
Okay, so you're a veteran baseball man. You watch a lot of ball. You know a lot of players. How often does it happen, though, that you get information and you think a player is either really good or average and you say, didn't know that? Does that happen very often for you?
It does happen. It should happen because there's so much on these guys. Now, you're usually not going to look at someone who's an all-star and say, wait, I didn't realize this guy's the worst player in the league. That's not how it works. It's usually those little marginal things. But when you're talking about, those guys that you can pick up and under the radar moves that end up becoming, big time guys for your club, or you're talking about prospects where there's a lot of years between when you get them and when they impact your team, those little things add up. All it takes is one of those guys to pop and it can transform your organization. So there's really a lot that goes into that. And sometimes, these things always come down to splitting hairs, and you want to make sure you end up on the right side of those decisions.
Then your other new hire is Jacob Buffa, St. Louisan, who's your senior director of international scouting. That's pretty self-explanatory, but I asked you this in your press conference because I think it's a really big deal, and I know you do too. The international pool is really important for a franchise like the Cardinals, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's been the case, throughout the years, and Moy and his group have done a lot of good work there throughout the years. The organization's had plenty of real standout international players come through and help this organization win, going back decades, and certainly recently as well. And it's always going to be a big part. If you're going to win with a core that you build from within, the international market has to be a big part of that. You're not going to be able to have an elite core, one that can compete with the best in the league, unless you're maximizing that arena.
And Chaim, you guys are not going to be able to swim in the waters of getting people like Ohtani or Soto. And you look at the past. I mean, Cleveland has a Jose Ramirez. The Blue Jays got Guerrero. The Nationals, when they won the World Series, had Soto and Robles. The Reds have De La Cruz. We could go on and on, but that's a great fertile ground to find a star player that's hard to get if you don't have a top 10 pick and hard to get if you don't have the money to sign free agents.
Yeah, look, if you want to win consistently, it doesn't matter what your payroll is. You have to do well with your talent pipeline. That's especially true for the Cardinals because of some of the reasons you said. It's how the Cardinals have always won. So that's a huge part of it. You'd always rather grow your own stars than have to go out and buy them. Obviously, there's a lot that comes along with that, and you'd always rather have those guys come up and grow them yourself and get the entirety of their primes yourself. And so if you want to do that, you have to be able to do that in every arena to find and develop talent.
Hey, I want to know from an industry standpoint, a couple of years ago when Houston won the World Series with a bunch of international guys that they had scouted after they had turned 16, which I thought was a really interesting inefficiency, by the way, in the process. But is that something that you or if you know other teams are doing, is scouting international players now beyond their 16th or 17th birthdays?
Yeah, for sure. There are guys that slip through the cracks for whatever reason. The Astros did an incredible job of cornering that market a number of years ago. That's just the nature of the competition in that area. It's really true everywhere, but obviously the international system, just because of the way that it is a little bit more of a Wild West. You have teams scratching and clawing, doing everything possible to try to find that next advantage, do something a little bit different from the competition that can result in pulling in more talent. I cannot overemphasize for our fans who don't really necessarily get to see what that's like behind the curtain, how intense that competition is in every area. Organizations burning the midnight oil, scratching, clawing, doing everything they can just to get small advantages because they add up over time. It's really just like what happens on the field. You do the little things right, those add up over 162, and that's usually the difference between getting in and not. If you have the requisite talent level, there are 30 front offices that are full of really talented and bright people. It's all about how we scratch out those little advantages, and then they compound over time.
Hey, Chaim, being somebody who is a devotee of Whitey ball here in St. Louis, I like a certain type of hitter. And I want you to tell Cardinal fans what you look for philosophically. When you look for a hitter, what do you want a hitter to be able to do first and foremost?
I do think it's important that we don't walk past any type of talent. So we could say there are different things that we want. We could say, obviously those teams were built on an identity of contact, speed, and defense. But, we could talk about that all we want. But then you get to this year's team. I don't know how many times I've been asked in the short time I've been in the seat, gee, wouldn't it be nice to have a little more power? So you'd like to have all that. You just want to be really hard to play. And honestly, I think it helps to have kind of a diverse group of hitters in your lineup so you don't get too pitchable. To me, I think a way to simplify it is when you look at a hitter overall, there's really three big things that ultimately hitters do. It's about what are they swinging at, how often do they hit it, and what happens when they do. So swing decisions, contact, and damage. And if you do all three of those things at an elite level, you will be an elite player. If you do two of them, you're probably going to play for a long time. You'll be able to put your kids and their kids and their kids through college. And if you only do one of them, you better do something else well on the other side of the ball, or it's going to be tough to have a career. So you want guys that can check as many of those boxes as possible. But sometimes guys have different strengths and weaknesses, and there's different ways they can contribute. It comes down to having a team where the roster fits together well, where your manager has options that he can leverage to help you win games, and then you become really hard to game plan against and really hard to play against.
Hey, Missouri, get ready. The wait is almost over. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is coming soon to the Show Me State, and you can sign up today. New Missouri customers get $300 in bonus bets when DraftKings launches on December 1st. Download the app now and place a $5 bet when DraftKings goes live, and DraftKings Sportsbook will bring everything you need to elevate your game day, including live in-game betting, lightning-fast payouts, and endless ways to get in on the action, all right from your phone. And when DraftKings officially goes live in Missouri, you'll be betting with the sportsbook app trusted by millions. It's safe, it's secure, and has fast money withdrawals. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the code STL Sports to grab $300 in bonus bets with just a $5 bet when DraftKings goes live December 1st in Missouri. That's code STL Sports in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Excludes customers who redeem pre-launch sign-up offer. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. And then what about philosophically from a pitching standpoint in the power game that Major League Baseball is now? Is there one defining characteristic of a pitcher that you and your scouts say, okay, that's what we want in a pitcher?
Yeah, it's less so about one defining characteristic as much as it is, I think our game is really unique in that we give the defense the ball. I'm not sure that any other sport does that. And so what that means is that you can separate yourself on the pitching side with those guys really having an identity, really understanding who they are individually. And that builds confidence. If they know what they're good at, they know how to get you, how they get you out, not just how a generic pitcher can get you out, but how they get you out. What's their superpower? You build an identity around that. Then you could start working on weaknesses. Then you could start adding to strengths. But you want those guys, since they have the ball, to understand who they are. And then with that, it really starts and ends with throwing strikes and controlling counts. And it's easier for pitchers to do that if they have an identity, if they have that confidence. So to me, it really starts there. Is what's this guy's identity? Who is he? What does he look like? What's the best version of him look like? And because the pitcher really starts with the baseball and gets to decide what's supposed to happen, if you have pitchers that have a strong sense of that, they can really take control of the game.
I love that philosophy because, again, it meshes, I think, with what a lot of Cardinal fans have grown up with. All right, I want to talk about some of the guys that you have. Obviously, everybody knows you have a plethora of lefty hitters in Nootbaar, in Burleson, in Gorman, in Donovan, and Wetherholt on the way. Do you feel like, Chaim, that you have to move one of those guys?
Have to, no. But obviously you want the roster to fit together as well as it can. And I do think we're in good position to do that. It was clear this year at times it showed up during games that just if you have a lot of like players, sometimes it just makes it harder to deploy your roster the way you want. So it certainly makes sense for us to look at anytime you have an abundance of something, to look at potentially using that and being willing to move from that to address other needs. I don't think we have to. I certainly think we could bring all these guys back. They're all talented players, and we'll be able to find places for them to play. But certainly, again, like to line up on something that makes us better overall.
And then on the right-handed side, we know Ivan Herrera is going to get a chance to catch, at least based upon the reporting towards the end of the season. Pages, Crooks, Bernal just won a Gold Glove, which is a big deal, by the way, winning a Gold Glove for all of minor league baseball, and he was the catcher that won it. What's the intrigue with Herrera catching?
Well, first of all, you mentioned Bernal, and just want to pause to give him a shout out, give him some credit, and also Ethan Goforth, our catching coordinator, building up that program this year in the minor leagues. And Leo did an amazing job. Still has work to do, but he got a lot better this year, and kudos to him. Gets to progress a lot individually and win championship, which obviously, as we know, that position ultimately is all about winning. So to finish the year winning a championship is pretty special. As far as Ivan is concerned, I think he actually said it. I think there was some interview where he basically said something about how he's too young to be a DH, and I think that kind of applies. The more options you have, the more valuable you are. It's a position where it's really tough to find someone who can contribute to that position in any way and also hit the way he can. And that's part of why he's so intent on doing it, and why we want to be able to support him.
Do you envision him being a guy that could catch a lot in 2026? We know he had the arm injury, so he's not going to be able to work as much during the offseason. Could it happen that in 2026 he gets opportunities behind the plate?
I hope he's part of the solution back there. Yeah, I mean, we're going to work very hard with him this winter, as we've talked about. He is going through that rehab right now, but it's something that we should get out of the rehab portion of this with plenty of time for him to work on a throwing program, to be able to be in a better position next spring, and also to work on some of the mental aspects of what might be the most demanding position in the game. And this offseason, the offseason, really, you have a chance to really get better, really consolidate some learning, and we're going to be with him every step of the way to make sure that happens.
Okay. Want to run through a couple more things. I know that you guys are deep in meetings, but a couple of guys with no trade deals that have said that as opposed to last year, they might be willing to be moved. What kind of conversations organizationally have you had, especially with ownership, about paying down a portion of their salary to be able to move them?
Yeah, look, obviously you'd always rather not do that, right? But it's really just about what's the move that ultimately is best for the organization, what pushes us towards our goals. We've set out those goals of getting to where we can compete for this division annually, where we can compete for championships annually. So if there's something that does involve taking back some money that pushes us towards that, and it's the best alternative, I'm confident we're going to be able to have the support to do that.
And then if Gray would go, it seems like you're going to have to get quantity in your rotation. Is that a pretty accurate assessment? You've got Liberatore, you've got McGreevy, maybe Palante, maybe Leahy. It seems like somehow you're going to have to get some quantity of starters to pitch for you at the major league level. Is that accurate?
You cannot have too much starting pitching. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Obviously, Sonny's here. We value him highly. Mm-hmm. He was brought here for a reason. He's certainly done his part. And we'll be thrilled if he's with us in 2026. Obviously, given where we are we going to have our eyes and ears open? Are we going to be listening? Absolutely. But, irrespective of that, we want to make sure we have as many good starting pitching options as possible. We'd like for those to come from within whenever they can. So you mentioned a few guys that are possibilities for that. And then down the road, obviously, some of the guys in the minor leagues that we hope will step up, continue to progress, and take some of those spots over time. But we don't want to have to rush them there. So we want to make sure we have good options in front of them.
All right, Chaim, you grew up in Philly, you worked in Boston, where the media has a tendency to hold teams and people accountable, at least they think they do. And you have a lot of people tuned in right now that complain that we in the St. Louis media don't hold the organizational or the front office accountable enough. So with your background, what does being held accountable by the media, who are the connection to the fans, what does that look like to you?
I don't know if that's for me to answer. That might be for you to answer. But I mean, look, I love that. We're all really passionate about this. It means a lot to be doing this in a place where this means so much to our fans. Every organization, we're in the entertainment business, right? We all stand on the shoulders of our fans, but I'm not sure that there's any organization whose fans are as important to the organization as Cardinals fans are to the Cardinals, with what they've meant to this organization over the years, what this organization is built on, what makes this place special. And they're passionate. I've already gotten to know that from being here for a little while. Regardless of what the attendance is, this is on everybody's mind. I have learned that very quickly, and I hope to be held accountable. I hope people will bring that passion. I want them to have opinions. And, this is an open invitation to you and everybody out there, all my good friends in the media, please come at me, hold me accountable. I want our fans to have access to as much candor and as much unfiltered honesty from this organization as possible, because they care so much. They deserve that. And this is a baseball town. People follow this. They get it. They understand what's going on here. And the more that we can have our fans feel that we understand that they're a part of this, because they know they're a part of this, we need to make sure we're matching that with openness, with access, and with that intensity that they deserve. So I welcome it. I really enjoy it.
That's great to hear. Hey, we appreciate your time, Chaim, and I know that you guys have a lot going on over at the Cardinal offices, and you're going to be busy next week with the GM meetings, but it's always good to hear your voice. Thanks so much for coming on, and have a great time, and welcome, by the way, to STL Sports Central. Hopefully we can make this a semi-regular occurrence.
Sounds good. You bet. And thank you for having me on, and enjoy the conversation.
All right. Thanks, Chaim. Take care.